Hi guys, welcome to a special sports edition of Don't Quit Your Day Job. It's Edison and Joshua, and we're going to be talking specifically about the NFL Week 13, and we're going to do our pick'ems for which games are going to go to who, and then at the very end we'll get a quick little back and forth on playoff predictions, seeding, and just kind of like where we see the playoffs kind of shaping up as we get towards the end of the season.
So I guess we can start by talking about the Cowboys Redskins last night, Thursday night football. I guess both teams are kind of in this situation where they're probably not going to make the playoffs regardless of last night, but the Cowboys did end up blowing out the Redskins, which just on first glance, I didn't watch the game, but when I saw the highlights, I was pretty surprised that Redskins lost by 24 points.
Yeah, what we got is going on here with the Washington Redskins is you've got a coach who maybe needs to figure out offensively what he wants to do with his quarterback. There's been a lot of offensive coordinator changes in the last couple of years, and really Cousins hasn't kind of found the same magic that they had when Sean McVay was around. And so what you're looking at is a team that's kind of middle of the road in terms of running game. Offensive line needs work. You really got one star corner, and that's about it in terms of defense. So Redskins are kind of middle of the road. They're in a bad situation with their quarterback. I'm not sure if they're gonna give Cousins that extension that he quite honestly does deserve. I mean, you're not entirely sure what's going to happen with the draft, and you're not entirely sure if you can find a better quarterback for your team. As it goes for the Cowboys, their season's probably lost. I think what you're going to need 10 wins to make the playoffs. So we finally got to see the Dead Show
Yeah,
on Thursday night.
he's now the Cowboys' all-time touchdown receptions leader.
I think it's a little too late, but something that they can definitely work towards next season. Trying to build that repertoire between Dak and Zeke. It's clear that offensive line isn't as big of a strength as it was, say, about last year, 2 years ago. You had a couple guys retire. Tyron Smith has been hurt this year, and it's really shown they've been trying to just kind of struggling to keep Dak protected when it comes to simple kind of like two, 3, 5, 7 step snaps. So that's something that they'll probably need to address in the draft for sure if they're going to want to kind of keep that offensive juggernaut of Dak, Dez, and Zeke. Hopefully, speaking of Zeke, hopefully this exile will give us time to think, maybe reevaluate some things, and I see no reason why they won't be in the thick of it again next year for sure. As long as they can draft some pieces on offensive line, they get another receiver, and stay out of trouble. That was another problem. Is a lot of this year we saw both on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball, the Cowboys were kind of putting themselves out because of things that weren't necessarily related to football. So I think if they can essentially get the ship together and get Jerry Jones in a reasonable, sane mood, you'll see if the Cowboys will bounce back into next week.
I think I agree. I think as soon as Zeke was gone, I think that was the end of the season. But obviously, he'll be back next year as long as he stays out of trouble. And I think they'll be right back to maybe not 13-3 like last year, but they'll get back to 10, 11 wins, and they'll get back in the playoffs. Now, will they ever win a playoff game? That's another question. I don't know about that, but I think they'll definitely be one of the top competitors in the NFC again next year. But yeah.
Yeah, young team, full of promise. We'll see what happens next year. So kind of starting off the 1 o'clock games for Sunday night. Sunday, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs going to the New York Jets. Kansas City's in free fall, only winning one out of their last 6 games. Uh, I don't know what's happening. I think we're seeing the real Alex Smith show up. Unfortunately, it's kind of crazy to think that 2 months ago we were, having legitimate conversations for an MVP candidacy for Smith
And Kareem Hunt.
and for Kareem Hunt, and now we're kind of.
Will they make the playoffs? I mean, their division is probably the only reason they have a chance to make the playoffs at this point, the way they're playing.
It's it's a crapshoot, and we'll see how they can bounce back into a second trip to New York after choking away a game to the Giants, surprisingly of all teams. I I don't expect. I expected a stingy defense from the Jets. There's been some creative outlets in regards to their use of Bayal Paul and Robbie Anderson to get McCown going in terms of like yards, kind of offense, and getting some scores. Robbie Anderson played out of his mind last week. I don't expect that kind of production again. But I do expect maybe like 70 yards and a TD. That being said, I think the Chiefs want to steer the ship. I think you're going to see Andy Reid make them play a lot more disciplined. And so I've got Chiefs winning 21-13.
I'm gonna pick against you here. I think the Jets are gonna pull this one out. I think it's gonna be close. Maybe 24-21. I think that Jets run game is gonna get it done in the end. I think McCown's been playing decent for being Josh McCown. I think they're gonna pull it out. I think the Chiefs are gonna continue their free fall.
Well, lucky for them, Denver and Oakland are also in a world of hurt, so we'll see what happens there. Up next, we've got the 49ers going into Chicago to take on Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears. This is going to be possibly a train wreck of a game. It's a fish. Well, we'll see. Jimmy Garoppolo gets the full start after C.J. Bernhardt is hurt last week. He looked like $1,000,000 in kind of like the 10 snaps he played last Sunday. So this could be Jimmy Garoppolo's big kind of coming out party. And what a better opponent to have to do that against with the Chicago Bears, who I think have all but quit on John Fox. I think this is one of those things where you're going to see a miserable 5 weeks kind of ending the season. And I think John Fox will ultimately lose his job at the end. I expect this one to be kind of an ugly mess. Probably 14-6 49ers.
I'm gonna pick against you again. Actually, I think probably about 14-7 Bears. I think Garoppolo. We saw him with the Patriots, but we don't know how good he is without the Patriots. You never know how good a quarterback is when they've been under Belichick until they leave Belichick. Really. And as far as the Bears go, they do still have two great running backs, and it's usually like one or two big plays that end up on the few wins they've had. They've beaten a couple of actually pretty decent teams, and in the few wins they have, it's that running game that usually pushes them. And I think Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen, I believe is his name. I think those two guys are going to get a couple of touchdowns, and I think that'll be the deciding factor.
Alrighty. Next up on the docket, we have the Detroit Lions going up against the Baltimore Ravens. This one's kind of got a sneaky feel for It could be a pretty good defensive showdown between two really stingy teams. It's apparent that Joe Flacco has lost the magic if it was there to begin with. I mean, my God, to think this was a guy that not even 5 years ago went into Denver and went toe to toe with Peyton Manning and went double overtime and then preceded that with going into Foxborough in an AFC Championship game and outclassed Tom Brady in a football game. Um, what we're going to see is a nasty defense, probably one of the best in the league, go up against Matthew Stafford and the Bad Luck Lions. I think this is kind of like their hallmark is, they get a couple bad breaks at one of these games. Um, I expect this one to be close. I think. I do think that Matthew Stafford is too good of a quarterback. You got too good of an offensive weapons with with Golden Tate and Eric Ebron, and so I expect the Lions to win this one out on a close one. I have it going as uh, let's go 17-10 Lions.
I'm gonna agree with you here. I'm gonna pick the Lions. Probably you're probably right. 17-10 sounds about right. I don't think the Ravens can get much more than that. Even on, yeah, I don't think the Ravens can get much more than that. But something that we didn't really touch on. I think this could, if the Ravens can pull this one out, it might kind of save their season. It's like the AFC at this point. You just really don't know who can get in that wild card game.
Yeah, you got a bunch of teams who are kind of hot potatoing it in regards to that last wild card spot. So
You never like
I mean,
if the Ravens can start a run right now, then they could easily sneak in that second spot. At first, we thought it was going to be like the Chiefs and the Broncos because they went on these like 3 or 4 game, 5 game runs in the beginning of the season, and now we're seeing that they're not great football teams, and they might just fall out of the playoffs altogether. And I think the Ravens could easily step up and take one of those spots if Joe Flacco doesn't necessarily have to find the magic, but if he can just put up enough points to kind of complement that. It is a great defense. You just sometimes the score doesn't reflect that because Flacco hasn't gotten them any help at all really throughout the season.
it's yeah, absolutely, I agree. And who knows? This is a defense that likes to create turnovers, create points. We could see Matthew Stafford kind of slip up, and again, bad luck Lions. And we could see the Ravens kind of pull the defense pull their weight yet again, and steal one come Sunday. So speaking of opponents in the wild card race, I think it's all but. I want to say it's all but done for the Broncos and the Dolphins, but my goodness, we're looking at a possibility where 8-8 can get you a wild card spot.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
absolutely.
even put it past 7-9 at this point with the way that the AFC is kind of shaping up. So we got Denver going into Miami to play someone at quarterback. Whether that's Jay Cutler, Matt Moore, a body bag, sand,
Yeah.
a tiger with a jersey.
Who knows at this point,
Who knows
honestly?
at this
Does it
point?
even matter at this point?
They're
all playing the same, really.
Yes. Yeah. No. I mean, that's a good point. Denver doesn't have a quarterback. It's kind of amazing. Again, hindsight 2020. 6 months ago, we're thinking, wow, they have this embarrassment of riches. They've got Simeon. They've got this young Paxton Lynch kid that they're trying to mold into a future quarterback. And then, they kind of just stumble upon the fact that now they have Brock Osweiler and they're not even going to have to pay him the money that he wants because Cleveland is footing the bill. So it's apparent that neither three are really going to pan out. Lynch is hurt. You could see him go back to Simeon. It looks like Osweiler's confidence is all but shot at this point. And then you've got a team in the Dolphins, where to say they kind of quit on their coaches is an understatement,
Yeah.
man. You know, when you've got a guy like Jarvis Landry, who, granted, not the easiest guy to work with in the world, but you know, is immensely talented, and you're quietly trying to trade him away. Um, that's not good on your part, especially when your big offseason move was to get lethargic Jay Cutler to play quarterback for you. So, um, I think the Dolphins are more competent on offense as much as the defense for Denver is stellar, and it's sad that we're seeing such a well balanced team kind of wither away at the end. I think not having to leave after the insane brawl,
Yeah.
the thriller Manila from last week, not having to leave, and then just not having a quarterback to throw the ball to. I think Miami can stretch this out, kind of dink it and dive it, run it, slam the ball in. Um, I'm gonna go Dolphins 17-14.
I'm going to predict like a real shit show for this one. I'm going to go like 10-3. I think 10-3 Dolphins. I see now that they don't even have a Jai, it's like I'm not even sure how they're going to get that touchdown. I think maybe like a pick six or something, and then both teams will somehow squeak out a field goal. But it's just gonna. No one should want to watch this game, even Broncos and Dolphins fans. It's not going to be a good game, I don't think.
Yeah, and so moving on from not so good game to potentially exciting one, we've got the New England Patriots going up against the Buffalo Bills. T. Rod came back last week and showed them why they shouldn't have benched him at all, and they're in the thick of it. They're 6-5, trying to make a playoff spot for the first time since 1999. And they're going up against a Patriots team that has now engaged into playoff mode and are hell bent on getting.
They are the Patriots.
Yeah, they are trying to get touchdown Tommy, his sixth ring, and try to maybe outgoat Michael Jordan as greatest sports athlete of all time. So what you've got is you've got consistency at the New England Patriots. You've got a Hall of Fame legendary head coach, a Hall of Fame legendary quarterback. This is kind of like the, not so exciting part of the season where it's like they're all in, they're focused, they know what the objective is. They're going to try to win another Super Bowl, make a playoff run, put themselves in good position because next week is that showdown in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, which could essentially decide.
I think it will decide the top seed in the AFC.
Seed in the AFC. So they're going to want to not only keep up with them, but get mentally prepared for a drag-out fight. Buffalo, I think, is a young team, an exciting team. Obviously they've got a bunch of bad breaks with Calvin Benjamin. He was kind of trying to be that, that second option to Jordan Matthews, and be exciting, be putting points on the field. That being said, I think that they'll give New England a run for their money. Be a close call, but I think it's December. Brady and Belichick, they don't lose. That being said, I've got the Patriots winning 35-24.
My opinion, I'm a Steelers fan, so I want nothing more than the Patriots to lose. But like you said, it's December. They're in playoff mode. They know how dangerous the Steelers could be if they did happen to get home field. And I think there's just no way that they would give away a game to the Buffalo Bills. I am in a different opinion, I don't even think it's going to be close, honestly. I think the Bills, like you said, they're a young team. They've been decent throughout the season, and I think they might end up sneaking into that wild card spot. But I'm going to go 35-14 in the end. I think the Patriots are just going to really take a hold of the game and kind of show the Steelers that they're coming for them next week.
Okay, and then moving on, we've got Buccaneers at Packers. We got famous Jameis. He's back in the house. He's done grabbing people. Hopefully,
We don't know.
We don't know. He's a oh boy, man. That front office is in for a world of hurt these next couple of months, trying to keep him from being an idiot.
Yeah.
Which it seems that that's just never going to happen at this point for the guy. Brett Hundley is still the quarterback, but somewhere looming in the shadows is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And they're 5-6. 10 wins could get you a wild card spot.
I think last week was their opportunity for that wild card spot, and I think they just came up a bit short in the end. I think it could be the end of their season.
So, yeah, we'll see. You really see how overrated the Packers are really without Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary how just inept.
It makes you realize how they treat Aaron Rodgers, how they take advantage of Aaron Rodgers. Like if Aaron Rodgers was in a organization that surrounded him with talent, then how many Super Bowls could Aaron Rodgers win, you know? It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, he is definitely, it's almost like the equivalent of putting a Band-Aid over a shotgun wound. It's pretty awful. And so what we've got is uninspired play calling from McCarthy. God knows what's going to happen with Tampa Bay. They're on the road going to Green Bay. This one's a toss up.
Yeah.
I think I will go Packers on this one. You know, you've got a lot of veterans, a lot of pride.
Yeah.
You got a defense that's not great, but they play hard.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how can you ever not score points with Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb on your team? But it probably won't be a high-scoring affair. I'm going to go 21-7.
Well,
Packers.
Brent Huntley actually really impressed me last week. I don't know. It could have been a fluke. Maybe the Steelers' defense was just taking a nap. But prior to last week, they were second in the NFL in scoring defense. So I don't know. Well, maybe it was just a combination of events that led to them scoring 28 points. But he has to have some ability as a quarterback if he can do that to a defense that's been just dominating most of the year, just about everyone they've played. So I'm going to take the Packers as well, and I'll probably go 28-14. The Buccaneers haven't impressed me all year, and I don't see any reason why that would change.
Okay, and moving on, we've got the AFC South, which is, my God, so awful. We've got, oh, my goodness. Indianapolis Colts make a trip to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chuck Pagano's gone. I don't see.
I see no way he's not.
I don't see any other way. This team is just grossly just inept from top to bottom. It's a problem from the owner to the coaching staff. They've had some bad breaks in regards to players, that particularly Malik Hooker. You know, their coveted safety towards ACL, like about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it's still, you know, and just the mismanagement of Andrew Luck is just terrible. It's beyond stupidity. And what you've got is is a coach and a GM who really needed to have been gone 2 years ago, and a lot of people got sold out
Yep.
to save this GM hasn't who really hasn't drafted anybody that's made an impact on this team. A lot of their moves tend to be in free agency, and so this is just gross all around. I expect Colts to be out of it. Jaguars,
That defense.
that defense,
That's really all you need to say.
that defense.
That defense.
God bless them. It has to be brutalizing to have a quarterback like Blake Bortles trying to throw away games for you. That being said, I think that defense will get the job done and brutalize Indianapolis, and I expect it to be. I'm going to go 24-3.
I think if the Colts score more than 3 points, they should pat themselves on the back. I think that would be the best outcome they could hope for. I think I'm going to go 28-0. I think that defense is going to keep the field position good. And I don't know, Fournette's kind of never know every week if he's going to play or not. But if he does, I think he's going to just explode on the Colts. And I think, yeah.
And then we are going into Texans Titans, which is the other AFC South game, which will also be just a mess.
Slightly less of a mess, I
Slightly
think.
less of a mess. You've got a talented Texans team, but how many years have we been saying that? I don't. Does it seem as though Bill O'Brien is in the hot seat?
I think it's always like if I had a quarterback. And we saw glimpses with Deshaun Watson. We saw like what was it, like 4 or 5 games maybe with
Deshaun Watson has the swagger of a guy who's been in the league for like 5 years.
I mean they almost beat the Patriots, and this was like the Patriots were gearing up at this point. It wasn't like week 1 Patriots.
It's funny because we have had this excuse for Bill O'Brien. It's if I only had a quarterback, and then you draft a quarterback, and you decide not to start in week 1.
Yep.
And so that's a strike on him that maybe might play into later in the year when they're looking back on their wasted season. But defense has been a problem for this team. As you're kind of mentioning, kind of when they did have Watson, he put up, I think, 40 something points on the Patriots.
Yeah, it was,
and 35 on the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
And
this was pre-injuries to the Seahawks defense as well.
This is taking it to the Legion of Boom, and that defense managed to piss away both games. And
yep.
So
which is so crazy because coming into the season, you're like, that might get them in the playoffs. That defense. Deshaun Watson was iffy. You don't know what he's going to do, and Tom Savage is not iffy. You know exactly what he's going to do. So you were thinking like maybe they'll be 9-7 because of that defense and squeak into the playoffs like last year. And then Deshaun Watson starts playing, and it's crazy. They're going off for 40 points on these great defenses, and he goes down. And since then, it's just they're deflated. I think losing J.J. Watt, losing Deshaun Watson. I think those two things alone was enough to ruin their season.
So we'll see if see what happens, but Titans, solid defense. Mariota's kind of trying to figure things out. I'm not entirely sure. That being said, we've got a close one in our hands. I'm gonna go. Savage has somehow managed to put points together, so I'll do the DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm gonna go Titans 28, Texans 24.
I don't see I know Savage has put some points together, but I'm going to go Titans 14, Texans 10. I think it'll be a pretty low-scoring affair. I think Mariota will do just enough to get the Titans to win.
Okay, and moving on to what I think might be the game of the week. The Minnesota Vikings make a trip to Atlanta. This is probably must-win territory for Atlanta.
Yeah.
They want to keep up in the AFC South. I mean, the
NFC.
NFC South. They're a game behind the Panthers and the Saints for top prize there. Obviously, 10 wins is what you're gonna need to get into the playoffs. It's a quality opponent in Minnesota. I think they're going to be one of the top teams going into the playoffs, and you want to kind of put your team in preparation. If I am Minnesota, I'm putting 2 men. I'm putting 3 men on Julio Jones.
Yeah.
That is, rumble, young man, rumble. That's something to behold last week. Minnesota, it's a good defense. It's a great defense actually. One of the elite ones in the league right now, and they're stifling. They're punishing. Good secondary with that can shut down some of the best offenses in this league. They'll be tested for sure.
Yeah.
With the Atlanta Falcons. I think this is one of those games where you're going to start to see whether we stay with Case Keenum.
Yeah.
Maybe we kind of look at Bridgewater. I think the Vikings are in good position. They're going to want to keep playing to get into one of those top 2 seeds, kind of competing with Philadelphia for the top spot in the NFC. So that being said, I think we have ourselves a shootout.
Yeah.
In Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go 42-35 Atlanta.
I think you're probably on the right track. I think after last week, Julio Jones kind of had this big coming out party for the season. He just dominated. So I think that continues. I think even if they triple team him, I think Julio Jones is going to be the deciding factor here. And I'll go 35-28. I think Case Keenum's been playing well, and I think he'll definitely score some points, but I think he'll just come up short. And like you said, it might very well be the deciding factor as to whether or not the Falcons can go on a run here and get into the playoffs.
Okay, and moving next, we gotta go into the 4 o'clock slot. First up is the Browns at the Chargers. There's not much to say about the Cleveland Browns. They're a mess from top to bottom.
Basically the same as every year. You don't need to talk about it.
1-26. I don't know if Haslam is going to continue with Hugh Jackson going into next season. It's a train wreck. They're playing up against the Chargers, who, last year that was their one win.
Yep.
I think the Chargers are seeing their schedule. I think they're seeing how easy it is.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I think they're thinking, we can make a real run at this.
I think the Chargers are currently, I think they're 1 game back in their division.
One game back.
I think I'm taking the Chargers in that division. I think the way they've been playing recently compared to, it's kind of the opposite of the Chiefs and the Broncos, where they started the season hot and now they're finishing the season just completely off track. I think the Chargers, at least they're doing it the way you would want to do it. It's coming into playoff time and they're kind of kicking it into gear. And I think Phillip Rivers really wants to get in the playoffs. I think he's had enough of not being there, and I think they're going to destroy the Browns this week. Honestly,
absolutely. I think this is the one team that if they make it into the playoffs, I think they're the most dangerous ones because they're going to kind of have this kind of like carefree abandon. And Phillip Rivers is a fantastic quarterback who knows how to throw the ball very deep.
Absolutely. And that defensive line for the Chargers is
Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. It's filthy. Not much more you can say. That being said, I got Chargers like 35-0. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm with you. 35-0. That sounds good.
I think the 0-16 is plausible. Cleveland is getting that parade ready.
Cleveland can hope for their Sam Darnold, and I'm sure they'll ruin him somehow if he comes out. And I'm sure it'll just be another conversation of who's the quarterback going to be.
Yep. And so we move on to the Giants. The New York Football Giants will go into Oakland to play the Raiders. And this one is just going to be a train wreck. As a New York Giants fan, it's kind of sad to see Eli Manning kind of getting disrespected the way he has been, especially for a coach that has no problem deflecting blame on everyone but himself. Um, it's I don't see how Geno Smith going into Oakland is going to make things better. Uh, Oakland is the disappointment of the year. Getting
Super Bowl aspirations coming in.
they had Super Bowl aspirations. They had a solid defense. The Crabtree Cooper connection. I thought that was going to be something that we would see blossom even more going into it. And Crabtree is just picking fights with Talib. Cooper hasn't necessarily progressed as well as he did from his rookie year. Marshawn Lynch is kind of doing his own thing. I feel for Marshawn. Marshawn's doing Marshawn things, and that's fine. But the Raiders are clearly the disappointment of the league. With that being said, another team that had Super Bowl aspirations and then watched that burn in the flames completely was the New York Giants. Janoris Jenkins is out for the year now. Geno Smith starting. I think this team is going to quit on their coach. I expect the Raiders to win 35-14.
I'm going to take Raiders 28-14. I think, yeah, basically you covered everything. The Giants are a shit show this year, and the Raiders, they could still squeak in the playoffs. I don't think there's any chance that they could win a playoff game unless they just completely get things going in a different direction. But yeah, 28-14. That's what I'm going to go.
Okay, and then going into it, next game is Panthers at Saints. This should be a fun one. Well, it should be. We don't know what cam we're going to get this week, whether we're going to get bad cam or good cam. Um, uh, Drew Brees is the same boat. He hasn't. I think the narrative has been this year is that the running game of Ingram and Kamara have allowed for Drew not to throw for like 35 times a game for like 400 yards. But at the same time, it's kind of like, whew, he has not stepped up this year and not been at that elite level that we know we're used to seeing Drew Brees at.
Yep.
So I think it's a point of personal pride. I think I think he's going to want to commit himself to making sure that he can be the Drew Brees that everyone knows and make those throws, make them accurately. There were some throws last week in that Rams game where I don't know what he was seeing.
They could have won that game if he had.
It's a bit wobbly, some ducks getting thrown out there. But again, at the same time, who knows what version of Cam Newton we're going to get this week.
Yep.
He's same thing. You don't know if you're going to get a guy who's going to throw for 250 yards and run it for like 75, a couple TDs, or if you're going to get a guy who is running for his life and barely getting to the 100-yard range when it comes to throwing.
Yeah.
Terrific defenses on both sides of the ball of both teams. I think Marshawn Lattimore will be back for the Saints. They definitely missed him in that Rams game.
Yeah.
They kind of been shutting some offenses down, but missing Lattimore definitely hurt them. The Panthers, I mean, what can we say? Kuechly is probably one of the best middle linebackers in the league. Great. Tony Ely, Charles Johnson, Julius Peppers.
Just all around.
Just all around. Great defense. And so we'll see what happens. Christian McCaffrey and Christian McCaffrey, Devin Funchess. They're exciting young players for the Carolina Panthers, and I think they can put up some points. That being said, I think this one's must win for the Saints.
I think they'll get in the playoffs either way, but if they want to
they want
prove themselves as a competitor for the Super Bowl. I think they have to show it here.
Yeah, I mean, losing it to the Rams last week was disappointing for them. They got to show up again against the Panthers. So I have the Saints winning 28-24.
I'm going to go with the Saints as well. I'll say 35-21. I think Drew Brees really steps up this week.
And then we got an NFC West showdown between the surprise team of the NFL, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Arizona Cardinals with Mr. Blaine Gabbert, who got his revenge win against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. It's really impressive kind of seeing Sean McVay kind of blossom into this like young head coach, and just it's incredible to see how he took Jared Goff, who I think for most people wrote him off as a bust.
Absolutely. Basically everyone did.
And turn him into this elite quarterback who you could say has a legitimate chance of winning the MVP this year.
I think there's a few people ahead of him, but he should be in the conversation at the very least.
And so it's terrific offense, nasty defense, great corners for sure. Tremaine Johnson is leading those boys, and he is as physical a cornerback you will see in this league. He's a throwback to those 80s and 90s corners that we all love and respect. Exciting offense. Those guys. This is a guy that we're talking about Sean McVay. When he does play calls, it doesn't matter if he's got 28 points on you. He's going to throw it deep.
I mean,
Continue to throw it deep.
They were up a touchdown on the Saints last week with like 5 minutes to go, and instead of running the ball and running clock, he's throwing it like 15 yards downfield and picking up first downs. This guy is he's balls to the wall. He's doing what he wants, and it's working.
Yeah, no, and I think the other thing that's really exciting, you hopefully maybe other coaches kind of catch on to is he's not so much reliant on the third down. He's a guy that's like, if I can get 10 yards on the first play,
yep.
I will get 10 yards on the first play. Why be conservative on, second down if I can throw it deep? I get 35 yards.
I think that's why the Saints couldn't stop him at the end of that game last week, because they expect that because it's the norm in the NFL. But he's saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tear your defense up, and I'm going to drive it down the field as fast as I can.
So, I have utmost respect for Bruce Arians as a coach on the other side, Arizona Cardinals, but I think the era of him, Fitzgerald, Palmer, I think that's all done.
Yeah.
I think he'll probably relieve duties at the end of this year, and probably call it quits for Carson Palmer.
Probably.
I think he's, I think he had his moment last year, or not last year, but a couple years ago, where they made that playoff run and almost made it to the Super Bowl. And Fitzgerald gets to end his Hall of Fame career doing what he loves to do, playing football. So that being said, I have the Los Angeles Rams winning. I am 42-24.
I'm going to take. I don't think the Cardinals are going to score that much. I'm going to go 42-14. I think the Rams are just going to tear them up.
So then we are moving up into the Sunday night game, which will see the first-placed Philadelphia Eagles go into Seattle to take on the Russell Wilson and the Legionless. Boom.
Basically just taking on Russell Wilson at this point.
Offensive line is a problem. Their secondary is a problem in Seattle. But, you got a fighting chance when you've got those linebackers and, a defensive line that features Michael Bennett and Sheldon Richardson. And Russell Wilson is this guy that he masks a lot of the problems that are going on in Seattle in regards to, like, creativity in play calling and just bonehead decisions. Specifically we're at the 20-yard line and we're not going to kick a field goal. You know, Pete Carroll likes to be innovative and ballsy, but a lot of times it's really bit him in the ass. And I think a lot of the players in Seattle are starting to get annoyed by that. I think this is the end of the Legion boom.
Yeah.
I think people are being traded this year.
I think there was rumors that Sherman was gone before this year started. So
I think that's probably happening this year. Earl Thomas may retire. He was thinking about retiring last year.
Yeah.
Cam Chancellor is hurt, but I think he's still got some juice left.
I think Cam will be back, but will it be for the Seahawks is the question. I think
he's the Seahawk that ends up staying. I think Earl Thomas retires, and I think they'll want to trade Richard Sherman away. Speaking of that, I expect him to be a Cowboy next year. I think Jerry Jones is desperate for corners.
Yeah. And as he should be, watching that defense play most of the season.
So I expect him. Politics be damned. I expect him.
Maybe a little Dez for Sherman.
Right.
Something like that. Never know.
I think Dez will stay. I think they'll probably. I could see Seattle giving up Sherman for like a 4th round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Philadelphia. Great defense. You have an MVP caliber quarterback who is playing lights out.
I mean, right now it's like, was it 2 or 3 years ago when the Panthers were 15-1, made the Super Bowl? That's what it's reminded me of. Like, it's just a train. Unless you have a Denver Broncos defense from that year, then I don't see how you're going to stop the Eagles. And on top of that, the Eagles defense has been lights out as well.
It's been the highlight of the league this year, and getting to see Carson Wentz kind of mature as a quarterback, and make that transition to possibly elite status has been exciting to watch. As a Giants fan, it's painful, but I think
Wentz is the MVP for me this year so far.
I will surprise you with who I think my MVP pick is this year.
Okay.
But this is a statement game for them. It would have been maybe not so much now because of kind of injuries to Seattle, but I think this is a game that Philadelphia will go into. It's Sunday night. They're going to be in front of the whole country. I think it'll be a close one. I think this will kind of test them for the first time in a bit. So I've got Philadelphia winning 35-28.
I don't expect it to be as close as you do. I'm going to say 35-14. I think Philadelphia is just on a tear, and I don't see Seattle being enough to stop them, and I don't see Russell Wilson being able to put enough throws together to get them in scoring position. I just don't see it.
Alrighty, and so we're moving on to the Monday night game, where we'll see the Pittsburgh Steelers make a trip to Cincinnati to play Vontaze Burfict and the Cincinnati Bengals. This game, as always, has the potential to go insane.
Absolutely.
And break down.
Yeah.
This is a game that Pittsburgh needs to win.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to be focused, lights out, get themselves prepared for New England.
Yeah.
This is a game they're not necessarily looking past Cincinnati, but I think
last week was when they were looking past, and I think this week is when that defense really hunkers down and they get prepared for that New England game.
I think this is the game that kind of, obviously it's Cincinnati, and there's no love lost between these two teams. And I expect Vontaze Burfict to, put up shenanigans, be a dumbass.
Of course.
Do dirty things. I will surprise you. I think that the MVP of this year is playing in Pittsburgh.
You going to say Antonio?
Yeah, I believe it is Antonio Brown.
I
think he has put up historic numbers. He's put up fantastic performances this year. I think if there were ever a case for making a wide receiver the MVP of this league, I think this is the year. I think, We don't have stellar quarterback play. I mean, we have some good ones between Goff and Wentz, Brady's his usual self, but he had a couple ugly games this year. I think this is the year that if you want to celebrate excellence in the NFL, there's not a better player in this league. As much as I love Julio Jones and Julio can ball, um, Antonio Brown's on a whole nother level. I think he's that literal like one play away from breaking a game, and we saw it last week. I think we'll see it again this week. I think, especially with what happened
I think
last.
if he shows up big in that Patriots game, I could see it happening. I think I'm probably leaning towards Wentz because he's a quarterback and just because
It's the quarterback.
it's the quarterback award more than likely. Like I would give it to Antonio in a heartbeat. I think he deserves the award, but yeah, I just if he shows up big in that New England game, I think that's what could do it. That's what could win him the MVP.
And on the other side, we have Cincinnati, who's 5-6. They're still in playoff contention,
Yeah,
but again, another team that is just dysfunctional.
yeah,
Um, they the play calling's not enthusiastic. It's too many sloppy mistakes from Andy Dalton. Um, and then you've got the defense that's undisciplined Pac-Man Jones. Montez Perfect. It's just always there's always something going on in the Cincinnati team, and um, it's disappointing because there's a lot of talent on that team.
I think they'll be more hyped to be playing Pittsburgh than for a chance to make the playoffs. I think
I think
they
so
get
too.
they get lost and they kind of don't have perspective on what's really important to the franchise.
I think I think Pittsburgh's in trouble if the moment doesn't get to Cincinnati. It's Monday night. It's gonna be in Cincy. Whole country's gonna be watching. If they can kind of focus on, you got Mixon. We're gonna run the ball, play action with AJ Green. Try to minimize the amount of throws that Andy Dalton's gonna do, because God knows he's one throw away from just utter, just heartbreak
Yeah,
and stupidity. That being said, it's Pittsburgh. Tomlin's gonna get them ready. They've got New England next week. I expect this one. This is one of those rivalry games where this is gonna be a close one. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go. I'm going to go 31-21.
I I'm expecting Pittsburgh's defense to show out after last week. I think they're all disappointed about how they performed against Brent Hundley and the Packers, and I think Andy Dalton is gonna do a lot more of what you said. I think he's gonna make a lot of mistakes. And I think that offense is just going to keep on rolling. I think Brown and Bell and Big Ben, they're just going to keep things treading along. And I'm going to say 35-14.
Alrighty, alrighty. And so now we're just kind of going to move on, and we're going to talk about just really quickly playoff predictions. In AFC, who do you see kind of making it out?
For me, it comes down to next week. I think if Pittsburgh can take their home game against New England next week and keep things rolling and they can beat the Patriots, then they'll have the home field in the playoffs. And I'm gonna say I wouldn't go as far as like predicting for sure that the Steelers would win a home playoff game against the Patriots, but I would say that if the Steelers are on the road against the Patriots, I'm taking the Patriots by like 2 touchdowns at least. I think the Steelers have shown over the past few years under Tomlin that being at home really that probably matters to them more than it matters to any other team in the league. I think for me, I'm gonna say the Steelers are gonna get out of the AFC, and it could be my bias as a fan coming out. But
Oh, sorry, I just that's really interesting kind of like viewpoint. I think I just meant kind of like which teams are just gonna like get into the dance.
Get into the dance?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go Steelers, Patriots. I think the Chargers are going to come out of that division. The Titans, I think they'll end up in that playoff spot that someone in that division has to get, that no one in that division is going to deserve probably by the time the year's over. And then those wild card spots, I think the Chiefs will squeak in just barely. That last one, honestly, it's a toss up. I'm gonna go Ravens. I think the Ravens will squeak in. As much as I don't want them to, being a Steelers fan, I think the Ravens are gonna put together a few wins and they're gonna squeak in that last spot.
Alrighty. In the AFC, I'm gonna go Patriots, Steelers, with Jaguars for the South. And in the AFC West, I think Kansas City will come up with I think Andy Reid will come up with a couple of wins to get them that division crown. I think they'll probably finish out 11-5. In terms of wild cards, I do think that San Diego has enough of I think scheduling is on their side enough that I think Philip Rivers can ball out and get a wild card spot. I'm also in agreement with you. I think Baltimore will find a way to get into that last wild card spot in the AFC. I think Tennessee, I'm not too sure on them, and I'm not totally sold on the idea that Buffalo can make a real push for the playoffs.
Yeah.
NFC wise, this one's a little trickier.
I mean, I think there's one guarantee, and that's the Eagles for sure. I think the Rams are going to come out of the West. I'm going to go Vikings because I don't think Aaron Rodgers will be back in time to save that from stopping for sure. And the South is tough. The South is where I'm having some trouble, but I'm going to go Saints. I think the Saints show out this week, and I think they end up in that division spot. And then as far as the wild card goes, I think both teams are coming out of the South. I think it's the Panthers and the Falcons. I think they end up doing just enough. Maybe I think it's probably going to be 10 wins. I think that'll be the mark, and I think those two teams will just barely get there, and I think they'll lock up their playoff spots. It'll probably be down to the last week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for sure. I think, and Philadelphia is the safe bet. And the other safe bet is Minnesota. Rodgers or not, I think.
Yeah.
That the Minnesota Vikings are in a good enough spot. Good coaching, good team, great defense, and a pretty good run game. I have the Saints winning the South as well. I think they're the team that doesn't worry me as much. I think Carolina's too unstable, and I see the potential in Atlanta, and where they're a couple of games away from finally getting it and being a monster threat to anybody. And so I've got Saints. The Rams are winning the West. I think Seattle's going to put up a valiant effort, but ultimately, there's not much left in that tank. I think they'll probably win 9 games, maybe even 10,
Yeah.
still not make the playoffs. In the South, Atlanta, I think they'll get a wild card spot. I think they're too talented of a team. I think they're kind of starting to get things rolling. And man, this last one is tricky. I want to give it to the Panthers. I really do. But I have no idea, whether I'm going to get good Cam or bad Cam.
They only have to go. They probably only have to go 2-3 from here on out to get that last wild card spot.
But I I think we're discrediting a little bit Detroit. They're they could theoretically, looking at uh, what's going on with Detroit. I think
Yeah, that schedule. I mean, Ravens, Buccaneers, Bears, Bengals, Packers, and if Aaron Rodgers is still out, then all of those are.
there's a winnable.
Yeah,
So they could make a run. So I'm not. I will put Carolina tentatively as my last wild card, but I'm not willing to say that the Lions are dead just yet.
I see what you're saying.
So you kind of got our predictions for playoffs. We talked about week 13 in the NFL.
Yeah.
So we'll try to do another one next week where we talk about what happened this last week. Kind of review some of the games where we see teams kind of shaping up, and then we'll do our picks for week 14, and we'll see what the playoff picture looks like in about a week. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.